Hello everyone! The concept we will tackle for today's video is that economic agents are rational. This explanation is primarily used to explain that people are self-interested, they are greedy, and they are largely unbiased and can evaluate situations accordingly to make the best decision from their perspective. And immediately, this notion generates the argument that if everyone were to act rationally, that is, again, in favor of their own self-interest, then we may create an economic situation that is favorable for everyone. This is simply another way of explaining the invisible hand. Because if people only acted in favor of their self-interest, such as in seeking to maximize their own profit and to reduce their own costs, then we do get a very competitive economy with lower prices as people try to outcompete one another. However, the world is definitely more complicated than this, and I'm sure you won't be satisfied with such elementary economic analysis. What we are really saying then is that when someone is characterized as being irrational, we mean to say that they are acting contrary to how we expect them to be according to one specific theory of rationality. In reality, people are biased, which is to say, their utility function, or what composes what they value in life, it encompasses a variety of interests and considerations that they may weigh differently for each and every person. And that also people have differential influence in the real world to exert in favor of their own interests. So what I want to do in this video is I want to take this part by part so we can understand this a little bit clearer. So when we say that people are biased, what we mean to say is that people are not necessarily machine-like robots that only consider pure financial gain over all things. They can weigh the present differently than the future, such as in being myopic and only considering the short-term consequences of an action without thinking too much about what will happen in the future. They can also vary their behavior as well, such as in changing their behavior according to the roles they assume as a parent or as a member of an organization. One example is this house believes that states should invest in conditional cash transfer programs. Here, it is simply not always the case that people are addicted to gambling in general as a rule, and it is also likely the case that poor individuals can also equally value the education of their children, and thus they are often very willing to cooperate with state institutions in following through with the conditions imposed on these programs, which, in a vast majority of circumstances, mitigates the influence that the effect of gambling may have on their considerations. Furthermore, I want to just point out is that just saying that an economic agent is not rational does not mean that we are saying that they are unpredictable. Actually, it more so means the opposite, or it can mean the opposite, that biases and existing information contribute to us understanding how economic agents may likely act. And that is also in itself one notion of rationality, or one theory of rationality that we can have. And so in debates, your role is to explain how an agent's understanding of the world and their specific preferences, how they align to lead to a particular decision that does maximize their own interest. Again, the more encompassed and prioritized interest that is not merely one-dimensional like what we mentioned earlier. So again, I want to give another example here. Let's say the motion was, this house would ban lower middle income individuals from investing in the stock market. And we are currently discussing the legitimacy of their choice to invest in the stock market. Government may say that their choices are not necessarily good for themselves because this is risky, and that most individuals may not understand the underlying risks of the stock market. So, state intervention is necessary to regulate their behavior to put them back on a path towards doing more stable economic activities that are good for their interest and for society's interest. They may even argue further that these individuals are biased from the information that they receive from stock options, such as on the hype surrounding certain companies, which can often be misleading. So they are biased and irrational. On the other hand, opposition may say that their decision is completely legitimate, even if it is short-term oriented, as this itself is a very rational and legitimate preference as well. the decision to maximize expected income by putting bets on the stock market options is a good decision that can increase their income, and thus states have no right to interfere with their ability to value this as a priority in their economic position right now. So now, the debate centers itself on when state intervention is necessary, rather than on fixating on whether or not these people are smart, whether they're dumb, which is a useless discussion, in my opinion. So, the important task that you have in any debate where you're arguing the rationality of certain actors, it is not necessarily meaningful to always fixate on whether they are able to digest this information properly, but talk more instead on how these legitimate decisions are able to reflect the legitimate preferences that they may have, and then you argue whether or not state intervention or whatever the motion is asking you to do is necessary. Alright, hopefully you learned a lot from this video, and I'll probably talk a lot more on this topic in the future as well, because I guess for now it's important to remember rationality is an essential concept for many economic debates that requires you to break it down rather than assuming all the characteristics that are given for all people in most of these debates. Alright, thank you everyone and have a great day.